To win, one needs to survive. Armorers of old spent as much time and effort making the means of protection as making weapons. Some of the items they made were truly amazing. Have you ever seen a helmet made of fish skeleton? Or how about this Weird Brewster Armor from the 20th century? And what's the purpose of this Birdcage Helmet? Watch this video and see it all. Fish Armor. Although the natives of the Pacific Islands didn't know iron, war was one of their favorite pastimes. To make weapons and armor, the islanders used whatever was at hand: skins, wood, bones, etc. The Kiribati people came up with an incredible helmet design. They fashioned it from the skin of blowfish. It wasn't easy to manufacture. The skin and insides of the funny-looking fish are extremely toxic, not to mention the sharp spines which can deliver quite painful pricks. In order to make a helmet, first a Kiribati warrior needed to catch a blowfish. When sensing a threat, the fish would inflate its body. In this condition, the caught fish was buried in the sand to be taken out a few days later. By this time, the body of the fish would dry out, turning into a hollow, spiny ball. The warrior would pull the blowfish skin over a coconut shell and voila, become the owner of a spectacular helmet. Not that it was very sturdy, after all, coconut isn't metal, but it provided good protection against a shark-toothed sword. It didn't work that well if the enemy wielded a stone axe, but what can you do? Still, a coconut helmet is better than none. The Kiribati body armor was made of ray skin. Thick cuts of it were sewn together with human hair to form a tunic-like shape. This armor protected the chest, stomach, and upper thigh, the most vulnerable areas of the body, wounding which could be fatal. Using human hair for thread wasn't an armorer's whim nor a fashion statement. Hair is actually very strong and elastic, much more durable than plant fibers. The arms and legs of the Kiribati warriors were also protected by the means of a sweatshirt and leggings. Seriously, both items were woven of thick yarn made from coconut fiber. The resulting coconut mail looked much like a modern-day large knitted pullover, but it protected well from cutting weapons. It sounds hard to believe, but you can try weaving some coconut fibers into a tight braid and cutting it with a knife. Brewster Body Armor. This awkward design is the great-grandfather of modern body armor. In the early 20th century, Guy Brewster realized that soldiers needed protection from bullets and shrapnel and came up with an elongated armored apron covering the chest, stomach, and groin, and a huge helmet to protect the head and neck. The standard steel helmet could be easily pierced by a rifle bullet and therefore wasn't good enough for Brewster, who wanted to create reliable protection. And so he did. The new armor could withstand a hit of a .303-inch rifle bullet. That's 3,463 joules of impact energy we're talking about. This bullet weighed about 0.35 ounces and left the barrel with an initial velocity of 1,888 miles per hour. Not every modern body armor design would accept such a gift gracefully. So all in all, Brewster body armor offered some advantages, but it had plenty of flaws as well. First, it weighed about 40 pounds. Since the infantrymen also needed to carry weapons, ammo, and other gear, the total weight was literally too hard to bear. Second, the armor hindered movement. Turning, bending, and even moving one's arms was difficult. Third, the helmet tremendously narrowed the view, as if looking through a keyhole. Naturally, the design armor had not been used on the battlefield. Having your soldiers stumble blindly about the front lines is not quite the best way to achieve victory. Birdcage Helmet. Who would ever want to wear a hybrid of a birdcage and a basketball? You wouldn't believe it, but back in the day, there were plenty of those who did, from ordinary knights to emperors, although not in real fights. This protective headgear, called Kolbenhelm, was used during tournaments where competitors fought with wooden sticks instead of metal weapons. These war games had particular rules. In order to win, a participant needed to knock the helmet off the adversary's head. In the early tournaments, competitors wore flat helmets with various amusing figurines mounted on the top: dragons, lions, wings, horns, flags, etc. One sharp dresser even sported the head of a swan on his helmet. Since the tournaments were a sport as opposed to a serious battle, the opponents did not seek to harm each other and aimed at the helmet tops. But now and then they missed, hitting the foe in the head with a sturdy piece of wood. Standard helmets sat tightly on the head, so the unfortunate knight would feel the full force of the blow. Imagine wearing a knit cap beneath a saucepan and having someone bash it with a club. Not likely a pleasant experience, right? The knights didn't like it either, so they replaced the standard flat helmet with a birdcage design. It reliably absorbed the shock without spreading the force of impact to the skull bones. The wide mount rested on the shoulders at a considerable distance away from the neck, allowing for a better load distribution. Kolben helm was really huge, so that one could almost fit a fist between the top of the knight's head and the helmet's inner surface. It also afforded a wider view than an ordinary helmet, which was useful even in a stick fight. It would have been an advantage in a real battle as well, but Kolben helms were otherwise no good for war. First, they were too heavy and massive. Second, they provided zero protection against stabbing. Narrow blade spears, arrows, and even daggers could easily pass through the sparse grid. Elephant armor. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, this is the heaviest armor in the world. Even the incomplete set that remains to this day weighs 260 pounds. The missing parts were covering the elephant's chest, shoulders, and hind legs. This armor was created in the 16th to 17th century and was very expensive at the time. The elephant's owner clearly cared about the safety of the animal. The design of elephant armor is different from both simple chainmail and steel plates held together with wire. It's a special type of splint armor, lightweight, comfortable, and providing a high level of protection. Making splint armor was difficult. The armorer would forge thin, light strips and fasten them on top of one another. It looked like steel scales. Dense chainmail material was placed between the splints, which protected the most important areas: chest, stomach, and back. Chainmail was used to allow for free movement on the arms, legs, and sides. But the elephant splint mail is even more impressive than that. It is richly decorated with floral designs, and the steel splints are curly rather than rectangular. Scholars are certain that the animal had its own weapons as well as armor. War elephants had parts of their tusks sawed off and curved steel swords placed there instead. By shaking its head, such an animal literally mowed down enemies, cutting a path for the infantry following close behind. In modern warfare, the tank performs the same function. World War I armor. World War I completely changed the principles of warfare. The troops no longer closed in on each other with a marching step, bombarding the enemy with a hail of bullets. This manner of doing battle became impossible. The enemy hid in trenches, fenced off their lines with minefields and barbed wire, and placed snipers at strategic points. Breaking through these defenses was virtually impossible, and no one wanted to waste lives for nothing. The warring party simply sat in fortified positions, watching each other across the no man's land. Someone had to do something about this stalemate, and one day an idea was born. Best soldiers were handpicked to form storming parties, units not unlike modern special forces. These bands were small, well-trained, and well-armed. Their task was to break through the enemy's defense lines, clear the mine, remove the barbed wire, and crush the initial resistance. These soldiers were equipped with unusual gear, some of which looked like medieval armor with a few special additions. The helmet with a chain screen, invented by Intendant General August Adrian, looked somewhat like a woman's hat with a veil, quite strange but also quite effective against flying shrapnel. These glasses provided good protection as well. Perhaps the most amazing piece of gear was the Transformer armor, which could be worn as regular body armor or used as shields. This metal apron could be used to set up a fortified firing position. Of course, carrying it around was hard work, but it probably paid off. Ceremonial armor and helmets with masks. Face-shaped visors were popular in the East, in Byzantium and Kievan Rus. In the 16th century, the exotic fashion reached Europe. Impressed knights began to order helmets of bizarre shapes too. The new fad spread to body armor as well, giving rise to costume armor, an iron shell made after some ordinary clothes. Armorers actually tried to imitate the texture of the fabric, weaving threads, folds, and even embroidery. This armor suit is a copy of a Spanish velvet dress with gold embroidery. Armor suit with a skirt was intended for fighting on foot. The skirt reliably protected the hips and thighs without restricting movement. The folds on this armor suit imitate fabric pleats. The helmet possibly depicted the face of a heroic warrior. This amazing armor belonged to Albrecht von Brandenburg, the last Grand Master of the Teutonic Order. The pleated skirt imitated an element of the traditional Dutch costume. Yes, Scots weren't the only nation to wear men's skirts. Curiously, the helmet looks like a bird's head. Perhaps as a child, Albrecht wanted to become an ornithologist. This incredible armor harness was worn by Wilhelm von Roggendorf, the imperial field captain of the Landsknecht. It's a precise imitation of the Landsknecht dress, a colorful suit with puff sleeves decorated with embroidery and velvet ribbons. Amazingly, the armor is quite flexible and doesn't constrain the wearer's movements. Emperor Maximilian I was especially fond of costume armor harnesses, to the point that one type of each suit was named after him. The court armorers achieved incredible skill levels in creating fancy armor. This fascinating horned helmet was gifted by Maximilian to Henry VIII. More precisely, the emperor's gift was a full set of armor, but only the helmet has made it to our times. Just look at it. The fine metalwork is simply stunning, down to the wrinkles around the eyes and facial hair on the chin and around the mouth. The eyebrows above the eyes have the finest hairs carefully depicted by the master armorer. The glasses on the mask's nose are a precise copy of actual medieval glasses, round pieces of glass held together with an angled bar. As for the horns, they were probably meant as decoration. It's unlikely that Maximilian wanted to hint at Henry's wife being unfaithful. That might have provoked a political conflict. If you're thinking this suit of armor wasn't too practical, you are absolutely right. It was intended as a purely ceremonial vestment. This kind of armor was used for striking poses in front of a celebrating crowd, not for fighting. Sometimes costume armor was used in tournaments, but rarely. It was exceedingly expensive, and ruining it in battle was like breaking a Lamborghini while grocery shopping. On top of that, the winner of a tournament duel was entitled to take the loser's armor. Would you want to lose a Lamborghini? So didn't the knights, who took great care to keep their ceremonial gear away from danger.